just going to share my screen, which always good fun, just whether it will work. Hopefully that works all okay, and that you can see that. Hopefully we'll be able to hear it as well. Fab, thank you, Louise. It was working for Louise. Hopefully it's working for everyone else. Yes, as mentioned, my name is. Let me drag that across. It's always fun working with a few different screens. There we go. Hopefully that's okay. Yes, my name's Daniel. I work for Exeter. Been working there for a few years now. Worked for various universities and was a student at university myself. I didn't study medicine, full disclosure, so I can talk to you about medicine and our application process. I won't talk about nursing, even though it says that on the screen, so don't worry. Amanda is one of our medicine students, so she'll give you an insight into actual student life and experiences. What was I going to mention? Yes, if you've got any questions throughout, either on my part or Amanda's part, please do pop them in the chat, and one of us or both of us will be able to answer them at the end. I'll speak for about 10-15 minutes, and then Amanda will be about 20 minutes, so there'll be plenty of time for questions. But hopefully you're nice and warm wherever you are, enjoying the autumnal, wintry weather. So a little bit about Exeter. Exeter is it's about 2.5 hours away from your college. So assuming you're close to your college, then yeah, about 2.5 hours away. There's direct trains available from Birmingham New Street down to Exeter. And as part of our course, you may spend a bit of time in Penryn as well, down in Cornwall. So that's obviously a little bit further away. But it's a really nice location, really nice part of the country to be living and to be studying. And our medicine course does have a very strong reputation. So we're a Russell Group university, so there's that sort of reputational stamp that comes with attending a university like Exeter, whether it's for medicine or anything else. We're a big sporting university as well, if that's something that you might be interested in, often in the top 5 for sport in the UK. And there's lots of other statistics there that I won't bore you with, but yeah, we're a very safe place, Devon and Cornwall. Got gold in the teaching excellence framework, so excellent teaching facilities as part of our university. So I'm going to cover a little bit about medicine generally as a course, both generally and also at Exeter as well. Talk to you about the application process, which is obviously there's some similarities for every universities, but there's some slight nuances as well, UCAT and MMIs, and then I'll pass over to hear about an actual student insight. I've just got a video which hopefully will work for you with sound. This is about
Hi, I'm Laura and I'm a final year medical sciences student at the University of Exeter, and I'm going to give you a tour of our St Luke's campus. St Luke's is home to Sport and Health Sciences, the Medical School, the Academy of Nursing, the Department of Allied Professions and the Graduate School of Education. This is the quad, very popular in the summer for all kinds of activities or just to relax in the sun. Info at St Luke's is the centre point for students on campus. Here you'll find the student information desk and the campus's 24-hour security service. Students at St Luke's can also take full advantage of the academic, social and sporting facilities at the Streatham campus, which is about a 25-minute walk or a short bus ride away. Giraffe House is a brand new study area. It's a quiet study area, so I won't go in, but feel free to take a peek. The Life Sciences Resource Centre is one of the main teaching and learning environments used by the medical programmes. The Richards Building is home to the Sports and Health Sciences Department. You can find the library on this side of the quad. The library has access to digital resources 24/7, available from wherever you are in the world. The digital collection is huge, with 90% of library journals and almost 60% of library books all available online. Up here is Berring Court, where the Graduate School of Education is based. Opposite Berring Court is the Sports Centre. The extensive sports facilities on campus include an indoor heated swimming pool, sports hall and an air-conditioned health and fitness studio. Cross Keys is the main social area for all students and staff at St Luke's. It's a great place to relax and have lunch or a drink, and there is ample seating and a quiet space on the first floor. The space can be booked for social events outside of usual opening hours and at weekends. The North Cloisters building houses the multi-faith chaplaincy and one of the main lecture theatres on campus. The majority of our student halls are on campus, but some university accommodation is off-site. These include Point X, James Owen Court, Northfield and Rowancroft, where we are now. There are flats with shared kitchens, ensuite rooms and studios, which give students the opportunity to live in self-contained apartments. You can do virtual tours of all the rooms on our website. That's the end of our St Luke's campus tour. Thanks for watching.
Great. There we go. So lots of interesting things there about St Luke's, which is obviously an Exeter experience, but loads and loads of interesting places and experiences in line for you. As mentioned, you will also be spending some time on our Cornwall Medical campus, which you'll hear about a little bit later. So what are the different medicine pathways available for you then? So there is standard entry. So this is where you join post A-levels or equivalent for a standard course. Most of those are 5 years, sometimes 6 years, but most of those are 5 years for medicine. There's also something called graduate entry, which you may have heard of. So this could be an option for you. If you're not quite 100% sure about what medicine, whether you want to do medicine, you could go and do a different degree, a science degree, healthcare related degree, and then join after that. So medicine would be your second degree, if you like. And usually those are 4 years, sometimes 5 years, and usually it does slightly depend on what type of first degree you've done. Some universities do what's called a preliminary year or gateway year. So this often depends on if you've not quite got the grades for the standard course. You could do an extra year in between A-levels and going to university, which would be a foundation year. So it's medicine with a foundation year, basically. Often that is you have to qualify for that. You have to meet certain criteria. Overseas courses. So if you do an accredited medicine course overseas, but obviously check that you'll be eligible and be qualified as a doctor in the UK if you wanted to return. Apprenticeships aren't done anymore. It was a sort of pilot, but isn't running anymore as far as I'm aware. So what does Medicine at Exeter look like? It may look similar, different to other universities, but we run a 5-year programme, an accredited course, so you would qualify as a doctor, as a junior doctor after your 5 years. From the first month, you'll get clinical experience. You'll hear a bit more about what that will involve shortly. It's problem-based learning. You would be taking place in small groups and real-life clinical cases. So it's a mixture of real hands-on experience from your first year, but also lots of small group scenarios and things like that. There's an option for intercalated degree and electives as well, option to sort of go abroad for that. I can't remember if that's in your 4th or 5th year, but Amanda will be able to tell you more in a moment. So standard entry for medicine at Exeter is A*, AA. Okay, so that is the minimum that you would need. And you would need biology and chemistry as part of that. Okay, so we do accept other qualifications. IB is listed there, as well as BTEC. But you would need the A in biology and chemistry. Okay, so that would be as part of your standard offer. There are some other requirements. So GCSE, there's a minimum in English, which I can't remember off the top of my head. I think it's a 6, might be a 5 though. So if you're borderline on that, then maybe double check. We don't assess GCSEs. So apart from that GCSE English, we don't assess GCSEs. So a lot of universities they might score your GCSEs alongside your UCAT. We don't do that. So we just base it on your predicted grades at A-level or equivalent alongside your UCAT. In terms of financial support, you can apply for the government tuition fee loans as part of your living costs. The tuition fee loan, anyone is eligible for the university fees. The living costs is through what's called maintenance loans, is dependent on your household income. Some of you might be eligible for grants or NHS bursary support for some students. With the exception for graduate entry programs, you can't apply for student finance if you've previously received funding for a different degree. So if you're doing medicine as your first degree, then you are eligible for financial support. But as I say, it does depend upon your household income and a few other factors. So this is a little bit of a timetable of the application process. So from May time, UCAS applications will open. So it might feel like it's all a long way off, but actually it's about 6 months away. So from May to July, you can start registering and booking your medicine admissions test, your UCAT test, and then from September, UCAS forms can be submitted. So you can start filling out the details from May, June time, but you can start submitting them in September. And because there's an earlier UCAS deadline for medicine, often September is your deadline. From September, medicine admissions tests take place. So these take place at the UCAT centres, and then the early deadline for medicine is usually mid-October. But as I say, your college will most likely, and you'll be able to hear about this, have an even earlier internal deadline, so they can check over your UCAS application. Okay, so mid-October for UCAS, but even earlier for your college, which I suspect will probably be September time anyway. From November, admission test results are sent to universities, and then hopefully you'll start to get some, I was going to say offers through, but invitations to interviews. This is most often called MMIs, multiple mini interviews. Different universities will do them differently. We do them online. I'll tell you about them in a moment. Some universities might do them in person from December through to March time. January is the main UCAS deadline, but don't worry too much about that if you're applying early. May is the deadline for universities to make offers to you, and then June is the deadline for you to respond to them. And then August is results day, which I'm sure will be a day of joy and celebration for you as you get your medicine place that you want. If not, there's always your non-medicine choice, or there is what's called clearing, and then September is when term begins. So that's a bit of a timeline for you. UCAT is the test that I mentioned. You may have heard of it, you may not have. Most medical schools use this test now, use UCAT. So different universities use them differently. We use it, and this could be subject to change, so don't hold me to this legally, but we tend to use it as a 25% UCAT, 75% academic achievement. Okay, so your predicted grades is very important, basically. So make sure you work hard in year 12. Don't ever like hearing people say year 12 doesn't matter and year 13 is the important year. Year 12 really matters, because this is the year where your assessments are used by your teachers, by your tutors, to input your predicted grades. So year 12 really matters. Make sure you get as high a predicted grade as possible. Alongside your UCAT determines who we invite to interview. In the UCAT, there's different topics covered. I won't go into detail about this, but hopefully you'll do lots of tests and practice tests and preparation for your UCAT. Preparation is key, and you only get one chance per year. I'll skip through the examples for time's sake. So MMIs, as mentioned, multiple mini interviews. There's different formats for interviews. We conduct MMIs. A lot of places do, maybe a slight majority do. And this is where you have different stations, basically. So they take place online for Exeter, so you don't need to come down to Exeter for it. you'll be put into a Zoom room, and you'll be asked a question or a scenario, and you'll go around. I think it's about 5 or 6 different rooms. So you'll get a score from each of them. So it's not like it's just one person is assessing you. 4 or 5 different people will be assessing you and give an overall score. So we assess non-academic qualities aligned with the NHS criteria. So we're looking for people who are suitable, people who have the characteristics for a career in medicine. So as I said, it's on Zoom, one person in each station, and we'll assess you on your personal qualities. So for 2025 entries, so that was for this year, and obviously we're about to start the process for 2026. So I'm helping out with that again this year. So it's 4 stations, 6 minutes each, up to 5 minutes at each station. You get a 2-minute break in between. Okay, so as I say, it's not just one person's opinion of you; it's various people. So if there's one of the stations you don't do so well in, you can make it up on the other ones. A few tips on MMIs for when they come around. So there'll be hopefully a year off if you're invited to some of those. Research the course, research the NHS values and criteria, learn about the STAR technique for interview questions, situation, task, action and result. Practice with yourself, with friends. Hopefully there'll be some practice sessions maybe at a college. Get your parents or guardians to practice with you as well. And check the logistics. Make sure you're not late. Make sure you're on time, so everything runs smoothly. I'll skip through that. We give a score based on UCAT and your predicted grade. So, final thing for me before I hand over: some resources there for research. So various websites that you can look into. UCAT might be a good place to start, or med schools. Find out about the various places and what it takes to get into them. But it's very exciting time for you, and all the best with the application. I'm going to hand over and stop waffling now. So I will stop sharing my screen. And Amanda, I will let you share yours and hand over to you.
Yeah, that's all good. Thank you, Daniel, for that. That was really useful. I definitely went through all that, so it's definitely a bit of, flashbacks coming back. But I'm going to talk to you a bit about studying medicine at Exeter. So I'll just share my screen now. I'll get it up. Just give me a second. Okay. Can we all see this?
Yes, can see that. Can see that all good. Thank you, Amanda.
All good. Thank you. So my name's Amanda Jenkins. I'm a second-year medical student at the University of Exeter, and today I've been asked to talk to you a little bit about studying medicine at Exeter and give you a little insight into my weekly life and what university life is like here, and also just studying medicine.
Sorry, Amanda, just a sec. We can't see you anymore. I don't know if you've accidentally turned your screen off.
Sorry, I'll stop presenting for now. I'll come back. Can you see me now again?
You're back now, yeah.
Oh, I don't know whether it's a case of because I'm sharing, I can't be seen. Let me see if I can share PowerPoint. Maybe that might work. Sorry, guys, just give me a second. I'll see if I can.
Yeah, you've gone off again. Don't worry too much. We can hear you, and that's the main thing.
Am I back now? There we go.
Your screen is, but you're not. But yeah,
I can see Amanda now. Yeah,
oh,
and the screen. Yes, I can.
Great.
Yeah.
Ignore me. Sorry, Amanda.
Okay. That's fine. So yeah, I'm just talk through a little bit about studying medicine. So I'll go next. Great. So what we're going to cover today is just talking a bit about studying medicine at the University of Exeter and talk about student life here, as well as studying medicine, the course itself. So like Daniel covered, medicine is a 5-year programme minimum here. You get a Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery. That's what the BMBS stands for. And the course itself, in a nutshell, is just a combination of scientific knowledge as well as your clinical experience, research experience, all from day one of the course. I was in a GP practice as one of my placements in the very first week of medical school. So I found that really interesting. So it really did throw me in quite early, which I quite liked. And then here I've written that years 1 and 2 are quite preclinical, so we'll do a lot more about learning the science, again with some clinical exposure to right from day 1, which is really good. And then years 3 to 5 are more clinically focused, and you're more in hospital, you're more on placement, but you're also learning your science as well. So you're constantly learning throughout the 5 years. And then I've just listed here the aspects of the course, what I normally do day to day. You've got your typical biomedical science and your anatomy learning. Those are your typical lectures, and you're taking notes, you're learning from it, talking to your lecturers. It is really engaging, to be fair. Exeter do it really well. And then we've got our problem-based learning. That's what one of Exeter's unique selling points is, as well as some of the universities. But Exeter's really good on the PBL structure that they do, in terms of you're with a small group, and you learn through a case, and you dissect it, not literally, but talk through it with friends, and you develop skills like teamwork and communication, and you also learn the content, which is really good. And then you've got things called professional development groups, or PDG. So this is where you talk with your tutor more about ethics, and what it's like to actually be a doctor when you graduate, and life as a medical student, and you can reflect with them, and if you've ever got any worries, you can always talk to them, and they're always on hand, which is really good. And then I mentioned clinical placements. They're really good. I said I was on GP placement from week 1, and I found that really interesting, because you do see real people coming in, real patients with real conditions. So it's really good to link what you're learning in science with actually seeing people and treating it. So I really enjoy that. And then to complement all this, we've got clinical skills as well. This is when we learn how to be a doctor. When you see people in the TV shows and actual doctors in wards, they're taking bloods, they're doing injections, carrying out physical exams. It's really cool to do, and it's really good to do early on, because it really does expose us to what actual clinical practice is. So I really enjoy that aspect of the course. And then we also do something called SSUs, which is more research focused, where we have a tutor, we have a topic, and we're invited to explore the topic more, find a research gap, and use databases to, answer this question that we come up with. So it does give us that research experience too, which the GMC loves. So it's a really good, well thought out, broad course, where it allows us to, explore every aspect of being a doctor, which I really do like. And then here in the bottom, what do I enjoy studying in the medicine course? I've got to say PBL. I do enjoy PBL. I'm a PBL lover, as well as clinical skills, because PBL I've made some really good friends from very early on. I just like how we learn. You learn with your group, like it's not just an individual sort of thing. Yes, you go home and you do your research about the questions. I'll talk more about it later on in terms of what I do in PBL and how the process works. But just briefly, you learn a lot of skills, you learn a lot about people, and it's nice to, clinically work on something, but also learning the science. And again, like I said, with clinical skills, I really do enjoy it. The tutors are very helpful, and you do feel like a doctor from very early on, which, everyone does love. So yeah, next slide, I'll move on. So how do I learn? In terms of my learning methods for a medical student, loads of medical students will be using these words that I use now. Anki, I don't know if anyone's heard of it, but that's basically a flashcard app online, and you make your own flashcards, or you can get them from other sources, and it's all about active learning and like spaced repetition. So each day I'll have a certain limit of cards, and I'll go through it, and I'll write them down, talk to myself, draw things on whiteboards to try and explain complex scientific problems in a very active recall way, which I quite enjoy. Independent study, that does come in a lot with medicine, because it's such a broad specification, but there is no specification like there is at A level, unfortunately, because there's so many conditions out there. But as from year 1, you don't need to be an expert at everything. They're not expecting that. They're expecting you to keep on developing, keep on learning new things year on year, which is the spiral curriculum, and that's what they always do emphasize on. So with the independent study, I'll try and work in, you know, quite a few hours into my day, go to the library, maybe stay in my room, do some Anki, do some, you know, YouTube watching of videos if I was ever struggling with a topic. Also emailing lecturers if I ever need more help. So there is an aspect of independent study with every university course. Research, I mentioned SSUs. I'm in my SSU block now. So that's 3 weeks of research with your tutor. And again, you can ask them any questions. They'll support you through your research, and you'll be expected to produce a piece of work at the end to explain what research you've done, what databases you've used, how you've analysed them. And I've really learned a lot about research in these 3 weeks that we've been doing SSUs, and I do find it quite interesting to take a step away from your typical medicine of learning about the organs and learn more about the environment, learn more about, you know, how humans behave. It is really, I think it's really good to have that experience early on. And then with study support, there is a lot of study support. I've mentioned tutors, PBL, PTG tutors, the university themselves. They act as a big tutor and, you know, support network. The library support as well, if you're ever struggling with, you know, accessing things online or using the Exeter Learning page, they're very helpful with that. So there is a lot of support out there. I'll talk more about this with the slides that come with them. And then I've again mentioned personal tutors, you've got them in the course, and well-being. It's important to make sure that your well-being is always looked after, because in order to study medicine and healthcare courses, we are going to be looking after people, so we need to make sure that we're looked after ourselves. So if anyone's ever struggling, the university always makes sure that they are on hand. We've got their contact details for well-being support workers, as well as having the buildings on campus. If you're ever struggling, you can go in and talk to someone, and it is really useful. I'll just move on. Okay, so where do I learn? I haven't written anything on the slides because I'll just talk through it, but I do quite enjoy learning in the library. I know that's quite a typical answer, but the libraries are very modern. The one on St. Luke's campus just recently got renovated. I think it was about January this year, so it's really nice and modern. I really do enjoy it, to be fair. It's nice that you can go to like the more social study spaces of the library or go to more of the quiet spaces, just depends on what you want and what you need. And they've got great facilities too, a vending machine, kettle, microwave, so you can always take whatever you need with you to support your study. And I do find it quite relaxing as well. Equally, if I'm not feeling like going to the library, I always go to cafes, or I'll go somewhere in town, go to a, maybe not a restaurant, but mostly a cafe, you know, get myself a little coffee or drink, and I'll sit down with friends and, you know, do some work. And I do really find that quite useful. And I do quite enjoy that because it means I'm not just staying in my room, bogging down in my books. I'm getting out, I'm seeing new places, but I'm also getting work done. So I do highly recommend, you know, branching out a little bit, never staying too close to home. Just do whatever feels comfortable for you, really, because that's important when you're learning. It's about knowing where you're comfortable, what you're comfortable doing. In terms of what else you can learn, there are so many places. Honestly, people go far and wide to do their learning, staying in their rooms, going to friends' houses. It's very just dependent on what you want to do and how you learn best. Something I recommend doing that I did last year before our end of year exam is me and my friends booked out one of the study pods in the library, and it comes with a big screen as well as big whiteboards. So we all went in, we took snacks, you know, we made ourselves comfortable, and we just wrote things out on the board, talked through scientific ideas and, you know, talking about the organs, whatever we needed to do. And I found that really useful because I learned a lot from them, and it really did help with the exam at the end. So yeah, just little things like that, just, you know, finding some people, even if you want to do it by yourself, that's fine. Just make sure you're comfortable with where you're learning and what you're doing. Yeah. In terms of how we're assessed for medicine, it is quite different to like other university courses in Exeter as well as other unis in general. So We do quite a lot in the year. I can't lie, like it is quite heavy in terms of the workload, but that's expected because medicine, you know, you're going to graduate as a doctor, you're expected to be working shifts, expected to, you know, help people, diagnose people. So it is important that we are competent when we do graduate to be able to do that type of work. So the university makes sure that they thoroughly examine us through exams like the medical knowledge and AMKs. I wouldn't worry too much about these words on the screen right now, just for you to be aware of them. But the university gives us little iPads, quite new Apple iPad, and that's where we do all of our exams on. So nothing's actually handwritten, which I really do enjoy. So you don't have to worry about messy handwriting or spelling and stuff, which is quite good. So it's normally multiple choice and it's based on scientific knowledge. So that's your medical knowledge and your AMKs. In first year, we had 2 medical knowledge exams, one mid-year in January and one end of year, which was in June. And then the AMKs, we had 2 formative ones, and formative means that they don't count towards your passing grade at the end. Whereas in second year, we've got, again, mid-year and end of year exam, and we've got 2 AMKs. But this year, these AMKs do matter towards whether we pass or not the year. So they are quite important, and they always will be important throughout the 5 years. And as from year 3, you just do AMKs. If the university doesn't change it, I'm not sure if they will, but you just do AMKs and you do them more often throughout the year just to make sure that you're understanding your science and you know what's going on, sort of thing. And then I've written there OSCEs. That's more of your clinical exam, and they focus more on the clinical skills and whether you can perform clinical skills. So we recently had one a few weeks ago where they got us to do different clinical skills, like taking a medical history, performing a thyroid examination, so looking at the neck, and doing other little things like that. And you need to pass those OSCEs to be able to pass the year. I find that quite nice, having an OSCE, because it breaks up all of the, you know, the learning, the science and the multiple choice, and actually getting hands-on. They use actor patients, so they're not actually, you know, real patients with real medical conditions. But you perform as if you are, you know, a doctor examining this person, which is quite interesting. And then in terms of coursework, we don't really do that many essays. The only essays we do are for SSUs and for our PTG portfolios. So I've mentioned the SSUs, that's your research time. We normally get 3 weeks to research. You'll meet with your tutor, you'll talk through the topic, and then they teach you how to use databases like PubMed, Google Scholar, how to, you know, filter through papers, how to select the ones that you actually need. And they are really good skills to be able to use in the future. And then you come up with a piece of work and you submit it, and then your tutor will mark it based on the university's marking criteria. In first year, we had 1 essay, which was 2,000 words, and then we had 1 PowerPoint that we had to narrate. And the essay, it was quite academic. It was definitely a bit of a shock to the system initially. But when I knew what to do and I'd talk through with my tutor how to, you know, approach this essay, I felt really comfortable then with doing them by the end of the year. And that was really good. I found it nice to take a step away again from medicine, all the science, and, you know, to do something more outside of medicine and look more at healthcare. So I did enjoy those. And with the PTG portfolio, that's reflective pieces that you write throughout the year based on what you see on placement, anything that happens in your personal life. You do things like skills audits, making a CV, and again, you write those down in some form, and then your tutor will mark it, and then they'll give you feedback. And, you know, they're just trying to see that, you know, you're understanding what life as a medical student and in the future as a doctor would be like. So I do quite enjoy PDG as well. And then you're also assessed on your professionalism throughout the year, because as medical students and future doctors, the profession does require a lot of professionalism. That's what professionalism was. But we always need to make sure that we're acting, you know, mature. We're not doing anything dangerous or silly. So it's always good to know that the university is watching our attendance, how you behave in class, and, you know, if there are any worries, they make sure that they explore the worries, and they make sure that, you know, They try and seek help for you if you need it and any support. So they do mark us on our professionalism, and you just get a satisfactory or unsatisfactory at the end of the year, and then there'll be more decisions and talks if you're on the other side of the scale, sort of thing. But if you're satisfactory with your professionalism, that's all you need to do. That's not too bad. That's probably the easier part of the course. Okay. And in terms of study abroad and years in industry, the only sort of opportunity we've got really for study abroad, if you go for like the, straight from school into medicine sort of thing, is the elective, which is really interesting. So that is in year 5, and I'm not sure exactly how long you do the elective for. I'll have to read more on that. But you go out for quite a few weeks, to be fair, and you can choose where you want to go within the UK or even in the world. Loads of people go to Asia, they go to Africa. They seek out loads of opportunities, and on your elective, you can make it quite medicine-y. So you can, go to hospitals, take part in their research, take part in their practice, learn from how they do things in that side of the country, in that part of the world. And then you can also use it for time to explore, have a little look at maybe what Asia's like. If you want to, get a little bit away from medicine, you can also do that, but it is more medicine focused. So I am looking forward to hopefully doing an elective in year 5. That is something that loads of med students work towards, and get funding for it, although you've got to seek your own funding for it. But there are loads of companies out there that help fund medical students through electives. So that is quite an interesting opportunity to have in the medical degree. In terms of years in industry, we're already really in the industry, day to day. We're learning about what you do on wards, what you do when you talk to patients, and all the placements, all the clinical skills you do. That all comes under the years in industry, because we are doing it for 5 or 6 years. So yeah. In terms of careers and employability, as Daniel mentioned, when we finish the 5 years or 6 years of medical school, you become a foundation year 1 and year 2 doctor. And then after that, after your F2 years, it's up to you then really to decide what you want to do, where you want to specialise, how and which direction you want to take your medical degree in. So it's very broad. Medicine is quite a broad career, which is good because it allows a lot of flexibility. And there's somewhat of reassurance that when you finish 5 or 6 years of med school, you do have 2 years of a job waiting for you, which is quite good. Although in the news now, things do seem a little uncertain in terms of after the F2, but we shouldn't really be worrying about that now. That's something to cross that bridge when it comes to it, sort of thing. And again, employability. Doctors are always needed wherever you are in the world. So having a medicine or healthcare degree is really good for setting you up for the future, I think. And then a little bit like more personal stuff. I've just done a little bit of a slide about like a typical week in my life. So this is very similar to first year, but I'm going to just talk about second year now. So on a Monday, we've got PBL. And as I mentioned, PBL is your small group learning. So you're in normally groups of like 7 to 8, and you'll talk through a case. You'll make questions as a group. You'll go home. You do your own independent study and research to answer these questions. And then you'll then feed back to the group the next week, and you'll see what other people have learned, what you've learned, draw things out, have a look at different models. It is really cool. I do quite enjoy PBL on a Monday. And you get to know your peers as well as your tutors really well. So in first year, that's a really good way of making friends if you've got a good group dynamic, I've made some of my closest friends from PBL. Doesn't mean you have to, but if it works out, that's great. But there are so many other ways to meet people. And then on a Tuesday, in the yellow, you could have in second year clinical skills, placement, or PDG. It's the same in first year, but I think in first year last year it was on a Thursday instead of a Tuesday. So the days kind of differ, but we do really the same thing. So again, clinical skills, we're learning how to be medical students and doctors, getting ready for placement, learning things like how to use a stethoscope, listening to people's hearts, doing injections, taking bloods. And then on placement, you're able to sit in with GPs watch them interact with patients, take part in the consultation yourself. It is really interesting, I've got to say. And then we also do community placements as well. So that's when you're in some community schemes like cancer research, mobility schemes, clinical imaging, wards. It's really interesting as well because it gives you that, wider aspect and better appreciation for medicine and how we can be better doctors in the future. And then again, I mentioned PDG, talking about your ethics, talking about placement, trying to make yourself and, make yourself more aware of yourself and like how to be a better person for people. And yeah, just becoming more comfortable with what a career of medicine is like. And then on a Wednesday, we've normally got lectures, and that's our biomed and anatomy lectures, just learning content sort of thing. That's when you're going to be making your Anki and you're going to be doing your slides and this and that. And then luckily on a Wednesday, we've got afternoon society time. So that is time for societies. And, if you want to use that time for yourself, that's great. So what I normally do in that time is netball. That's my main sport, really. And go to beaches, have a walk around the town, see friends. It's your time to use, and it doesn't mean that you should use it just to do work and catch up. You can do anything with your afternoon. It's always important to take a break away from medicine because the work-life balance is important. And then lastly, on a Thursday, we've got biomed and anatomy lectures. Again, that's small group learning, but it's slightly bigger groups, and you're with a lecturer. They're normally a doctor or a clinical researcher, and they'll talk through maybe parts of the body, a specific organ, you name it, we've done it sort of thing. And I do find those quite interesting because they have quite useful slides and it breaks things down really well. So yeah, that's more of a week in my life. And we're lucky in second year, we've got Fridays off. So that means I can go home a day early and I can see friends and, catch up on the week. So that is quite useful. I'll mention social life because that is important, like I've said, in your work-life balance. It's important that, you're getting out of your room, you're getting out of the library and you're doing something for yourself, because in order to, help people, we need to help ourselves, like I said. So the university offers so many societies through the student union or the student guild, as Exeter calls it. And I think there are over 300 different societies, like 52 athletic union sports. You can join anything to your heart's desire. There's very niche ones like Taylor Swift Society and like a certain type of arts and crafts to like, your more general societies, your more subject specific societies. So I highly recommend getting involved with the student union and all it has to offer because it is really good. Also, just things like maybe walking, getting more familiar with Exeter and Cornwall and the environment, going to see beaches. The closest one to Exeter that everyone goes to is Exmouth. You'll be very familiar with that if you do go to Exeter. Also, yeah, walking around the town centre, visiting restaurants, cafes, you name it, you can do it sort of thing. This town is really good for student life and for making sure that there's always something for students to do. So I do find that really good. And then I'll move on. And then in terms of next steps, there's loads of research degree subjects. I'd start having a look at the universities you're interested in, what they require, what next steps you need to take. It is quite early days if you are in year 12 and you're thinking of it, but it's, worth thinking about, what do I want to study? What do I need to do to study it? What sort of activities can I now be doing to make sure I'm ready for it? It says here, start your super curricular activities. What I did before applying for med was the typical reading some books outside of, my A-level books. My favourite one that I read was The Appointment by Dr. Graham Easton. And long story short, he's a GP and he talks about the different cases he sees on a daily basis. And I really did enjoy that book. And I put that in my personal statement and I talked about why I enjoyed it. There's loads of things. You don't just have to read books. You can watch videos, watch TED Talks, go to conferences, whatever your heart's content. I just start thinking about doing that. Again, you're in no rush right now. You've still got some time. So just try and start exploring what you could be interested in. And then it mentions work experience. If you can get it, that's great. I was lucky enough to be on a scheme in my local area where I went to a hospital for a day, and I got to observe 2 consultants, and I got to see their patients and how they talked to them and what they did, and that was really interesting. And I did that, I think, in the summer of year 12. So I'd definitely have a little look to see if you can get work experience. It doesn't have to be in a hospital again. So many medics here did different forms of work experience, volunteering in different community schemes, volunteering in hospitals, talking to doctors even, just little things like that, just try and start think about doing. Okay, next slide. Any questions? I've really blown through that very quickly. And if anything wasn't clear, please make sure you ask and I will explain more, but I've just left some time for questions. So hopefully that was all good, guys. Hopefully you're considering doing medicine, hopefully at Exeter as well. Thank you.
Amanda, that's absolutely brilliant. I think the experience that you have in your second year has really given students online an excellent picture of not just what they need to do now, which I think is probably, actually, uppermost in their minds in some ways, but thinking through what they are about to embark on and how much effort goes into the passion that you have as well for studying. We'll ask students to put some questions in the chat, and I've got some that we had in advance as well. But can I just ask you, do all of the students that you're with exhibit the similar sort of passion? Because it's one of the things that we tell students as careers advisors, that with medicine, it isn't something for the faint-hearted, and it isn't something you can be in doubt about before you start it.
Definitely. When you mentioned faint-hearted, that's definitely one I'd consider before you start applying for medicine, whether you can handle the sight of blood, because there are some med students that, have a look at that gory stuff and they pass out and maybe it's not for them. So I'd definitely consider it on that aspect. But in terms of passion, yes, a lot of medical students, loads of my friends, and I maybe say the whole cohort really do enjoy studying medicine. And I think one of the reasons why is because in year 12 and 13, you work so hard to get to the medicine at university stage. And through that whole process, you've appreciated that, yes, I'm putting in this amount of effort because I really wanted to do it. So when you do get to uni and, you're getting to do clinical skills, you're, learning from doctors, everyone shares that passion and everyone is quite excited about the future to come when we get, a bit more responsibility on the wards, when you're shadowing doctors more closely in like 4th and 5th year. So yeah, the passion definitely is there. Yeah.
That's great. We've got some student questions coming through from Farhan. What would happen for unis if you needed AAA but it got A star AB? I know that's quite specific, but I guess in a way you could think about how you approached looking at those universities and what the decision-making process is. I don't know whether Daniel wants to come in on that as well.
Yeah, it's a really, really good question. It's in that circumstance, it would basically just be up to the university. So on results week, so results always come out on a Thursday. Universities get your results on the Monday, so 3 days before. So they've got 3 days to prioritize who's getting in, basically, out of all the results that they've received. For some universities, that might be an equivalent. For some universities, it will depend on what the B is in. So for a lot of universities, they might, such as Exeter, we have a minimum grade A requirement in biology and chemistry. So if your A star in A was in biology and chemistry and your B was in your 3rd subject, that would be a lot better than if your B was in biology and chemistry. But it does just depend. Depends how other people in your year cohort did. The only way to guarantee your offer is if you get the minimum grades required. Anything else, and it's a bit of a lottery and a bit of a depends on the university.
And I guess attached to that, I'll come back to the middle question that somebody's asked, but about clearing places as well. Medicine in clearing, it has been known, but it is very, very rare, I think, to gain any places in clearing. Can you just comment on that, Daniel?
Yeah, agreed. Very rare. I very rarely hear of any places. I don't think we've ever gone into clearing for medicine. And yeah, I mean, clearing at university, sorry, medicine at university is often one of their most, premium courses. So it's very rare.
Thank you. And Amanda, question, did the university support your mental health and finding a work-life balance? Because I know you mentioned that, but obviously that is really important, particularly I think in medicine under the pressures that you're under and the kinds of research and activities you're participating in.
Yeah, definitely. The university is really supportive in their well-being, in the sense that we can find help through loads of means. I mentioned tutors quite a lot. PDG as well as PBL is like the biggest form of support that we've got, especially PDG. You've got your personal tutor, and they always tell us if there's anything you're struggling with. We have one-to-one meetings with them. Sometimes weekly, and that's time to talk about anything in your personal life, anything you've seen on placement or in the course that you're struggling with, or anything you want to talk about. So they're always there for support. We've always got their emails. You can always book a session to talk with them. So they're always there, and they do ask about our work-life balance as well. They're not just interested in what we see in medicine. They're interested in what hobbies have you got outside of medicine, what's your family support like, home life. They're not trying to be invasive or intrusive or anything. They just want to make sure that we are okay and that we're not struggling with anything, because some med students might want to keep it to themselves. But when we've got to have those meetings with our tutors, they really make us open up and they make us discuss if there aren't any worries. In terms of like finding the work-life balance, university is hard in the sense that because it's much bigger than school, and there is so many people, so many lecturers, not everyone will tell you how to live your life as school might be sometimes. And with teachers being really on you with work, university, you're expected to be more mature, know how to handle your affairs. But they do help with if you are struggling, again, like I've said, there's well-being contacts, there's tutors, there's online support, and you can always talk to them and they'll help you talk through your problem, or they'll help you find that work-life balance if you need one. So yeah, I've never struggled with finding any advice or support from the university.
That's lovely, thank you. And obviously all universities, as well as Exeter, have these kind of arrangements and support mechanisms. They may be varied in comparison. And that just brings me to the point as well about the importance of getting to know the various medical schools. And I'm sure, Daniel, when you think about the application process, you'd encourage students to visit universities, to go to the open days, to talk to the med students, existing students, such as Amanda, because the wealth of experience about what it's like to actually study at that particular university is quite individual, and how the courses are structured, the preclinical and all of that as well. I think it varies from university to university, so it's really important to get the right med school, although of course it is also important to apply for 4 of those university places and choose obviously an additional course as well. I don't know if you have anything to say before we wrap that up, but Amanda, where else did you apply to?
In terms of my medicine applications, I applied for Exeter was my first, because I always loved it from the beginning. Cardiff was my insurance, so I got in for medicine there too, and it was very similar to Exeter. And then, unfortunately, I didn't get into Oxford or Birmingham, but I'm not too bothered about that now, to be honest, because I think it's worked out for the best. And in terms of my 5th choice, which is non-medicine, I applied for Southampton for biomed.
Thank you. That's really, really interesting. And Daniel, I don't know if to wrap this up, you've got any other words of advice just in terms of perhaps where students are now at this point in year 12, particularly. I know that actually Amanda referred to those next steps, which was really useful. But if they want to prioritise anything, can you just give us a last quick word about that?
Yeah, my first thing to say would be well done for coming today. Obviously shows that you're starting to do your research and taking it seriously. Research basically is the next step. Researching into the universities you want to go to, research into medicine, what it involves. You know, it might be that medicine at one university looks very different from medicine at another university. So what type of medicine do you prefer? How do you want to study, basically? Which universities do it in the style that you want to? And then I'd echo what you just said, Louise, in terms of visiting. You know, you could read every word on a university website about a course, but until you actually go to a university and get a feel for the place, there is no better way of finding out what a university is like than visiting. Preferably on an open day, but if you can't, then visiting outside of an open day, getting a feel for the place, is probably the best thing. You know, even watching a video like I showed you earlier doesn't do justice to a university. So every university on their marketing and website is going to look great, aren't they? But until you actually visit a place and see it in the flesh, you can't know for sure. So open day season tends to be around May through to October time. So we've just gone past it, but yeah, starting from next spring, do try to visit. Certainly a few of them.
That's wonderful, thank you. And Faye's been putting some great links in the chat there as well. Obviously, the University of Exeter website, and also things like the Medical Schools Council, but the NHS, and some other information there, which is actually really, really key to have a look at. We'll be sending the recording round, so students, you don't need to take note of those. Those will be available on that, and Faye will send that round. Thank you so much to yourselves, Daniel and Amanda. It's been really, really interesting about the process, about Exeter particularly, because actually it's a great university. We would encourage students to go and visit a wide range of universities to make sure they've got the right choice. But Amanda as well, to actually hear that personal experience so succinctly and so beautifully put. Thank you very much indeed both for supporting our pathway talk this evening. For students, we would encourage you, if you haven't signed up for the pathway, to do so. You will be scooped up as well into our medicine, dentistry and veterinary pathway by Isabel Barnsley at some point in the not too distant future. So you do need to make sure that when she asks for it, you express an interest in joining that, so that we can give you the best support. We will look forward to our HE fair next year, where University of Exeter will be back again with us. And in the meantime, we hope you'll go and visit them and go and talk to the students there, so that people like Amanda can inspire you as well. Thank you very much indeed all for joining us this evening, and I hope you are not too cold on the way home. All the very best all. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.